Killings, rape, torture, and enforced disappearances in India-administered Kashmir. Ever since a rebellion against Indian rule erupted in Kashmir in 1989, at least 100,000 people have been killed, and more than 8,000 have disappeared in custody. And Human Rights Watch have recorded many cases of extrajudicial killings. Indian soldiers recently killed 4 civilians in Kashmir's Shopian district, along with 2 suspected rebels. The military claims the civilians were helping the rebels who attacked a checkpoint. But locals, rights groups, and separatist leaders dispute this and say the civilians were killed unlawfully.
We are seeing that innocent Kashmiris are being targeted day in and day out, especially the youth. And now there's a new trend that the government of India and the forces are targeting the young youth of Kashmir and labeling them as overground activists, labeling them as militants, and killing them in combat.
Such controversial killings in Kashmir are widespread, where the Indian military seems to operate with a free hand. What encourages the Army's impunity? AFSPA, or Armed Forces Special Powers Act, a law that was introduced in India-administered Kashmir in 1990.
There's a legislation called the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, wherein that the army personnel, whatever they do, they rape, they disappear, they murder, they torture people there randomly, and then they cannot be prosecuted. Government of India is convinced that they can get away with everything.
Under AFSPA, Indian soldiers can't be tried in civilian courts. India says it punishes its soldiers in military courts. But not a single Indian soldier has been jailed for human rights violations or extrajudicial killings in Kashmir. Ordinary Kashmiris and activists have made a desperate call for the law to be revoked, but India refuses, saying its soldiers are acting in good faith.
This is a part of a cyber war against the armed forces. It first started with Pakistan, then the Hurriyat took it up. People who are not exactly involved with the operations of the armed forces, they are now demanding it. So it is having a demoralizing effect on the armed forces.
If an Indian soldier is convicted in a military court, he or she can challenge the judgment in a civilian court, citing AFSPA. But the plaintiff can't challenge the verdict in any way. On January 27th, Indian soldiers shot dead 3 civilians in South Kashmir. The army said it was defending itself from protesters. The local government conducted an investigation into the role of Major Aditya Kumar, who led the accused army unit. But India's top court blocked the investigation into the killing, and Kumar was freed. In 2000, 5 civilians in the Puthrabal area of Kashmir were killed by the Indian military, who said they were terrorists. DNA results later proved the people killed were just innocent villagers.
हिंदुस्तान गवर्नमेंट से यानी कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट से इतने सालों से इंसाफ मांगती है तो इंसाफ हमें मिला नहीं है, लेकिन क्योंकि ये जो गवर्नमेंट है ये इंसाफ दिलाने वाली नहीं है, तो अगर ना भी दे तो क़यामत तक हम जब जिंदे हैं तब तक हम लड़ते रहेंगे.
Similar killings were carried out in 2010 in North Kashmir's Much Hill sector, where the army gunned down 3 civilians in a staged shootout. The incident triggered a mass uprising in Kashmir. The officers involved were first sentenced to life imprisonment by a civilian court, but were later bailed out by a military court. Kashmiris say they've lost all hope in India's legal system.
There's absolutely no hope for justice for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, innocents are getting killed, and now even we can't investigate the killings.
Will Indian soldiers ever be held to account for their abuses in Kashmir?